Hello, everybody. Welcome to Designing AI Native GTM Engines. We'll get started in a few minutes as people join. Where's everybody calling in from? You can drop that in the chat. And I'll get the presentation ready. I have a bit of a cold, so just bear with me. I'll try not to be coughing the whole time. Beaverton, Western Massachusetts, welcome, everybody. Orlando, Florida. I am in the Bay Area, the UK. Karen, nice to meet you. All right, let me admit a couple of more people and then we'll get started. Great, let me share my screen. We'll go through some frameworks and then I will also share all of these, the presentation and any of the handouts with you after we chat today. All right, a little bit about me. I'm Elena Luneva. I've been in product as well as go-to-market for over 20 years. I started my career at BlackRock, but also worked at companies like OpenTable, Liquid Space, Nuna, Nextdoor, and Braintrust. In my general manager role, I really had to work on the outcomes of the business, so worked with product and go-to-market together. And what I do now is I work with people and with companies on AI, product strategy, product market fit, and also how do we find the people that will buy those products. I also teach, so let me tell you about two of the courses that are coming up in November. The first one, Develop CPO level skills, has 4 components. The first one, that we'll get a taster of today, is go to market. Really, how do you get people to find and buy your products? We go into theory, we go into practice, and we also go into the AI underpinnings to help you do your work faster. Then we focus on finance. How do people build products in a way that advances their company, by focusing on financial skills and also figuring out how to tell um, those opportunities to our executive team. We then focus on executive presence and really showing up and working on the business, and then influence. How do you get the people in the room, outside of the room, your board, to go along with you and move the company forward? The other course that I'm teaching that's new is AI-powered executive communication, and that one starts on November 13th. And we focus really on how do you, as an executive, as an IC, as a director, communicate within the company, create communication systems within it that are AI powered. So you get yourself out of the copying and pasting, the meetings, the transcribing information to different people, and really focus on your ideas and getting buy-in and making decisions. And then the third piece is how do you represent your company? The more job descriptions I see, the more I see this becoming a skill. How do you represent your company in social media, in panels, in board presentations, and in the conversations out there? For this one, I'm joined by Baron Ernst, who gave the last lightning lesson with me. And he is a public speaking champion, and he's going to help grade some of those recorded presentations, and help you focus on how do you show up, how do you represent yourself. So yes, 2 of those coming up in November, and you have, by signing up for the lightning lesson, a code that gets you 20% off. So AI Light for the AI powered executive communication, and Light for develop CPO level skills. All right, so without further ado, let's get into why we're here today and focus on some of the things that people are talking about that have taken the course, and then also into putting together go-to-market systems. So I've had students from Amazon, from Apple, Ant Group, the big ones, as well as startups, scale-ups, pharmaceutical companies, and they found the course actionable and possible to just create and take that well-balanced mix of GTM strategy and financial insights and apply that directly in their work right away. All right. So today we're going to go through an example of where go-to-market playbooks break with changes and shocks to the system. And I'll go through an example at Nextdoor. And then how AI can help you create it into a much more of a living system so you can get market signals and adjust what needs to happen based on those. And then I will also share with you example prompts for the work, as well as if you want to take that next steps, how do you really create that? How do you move that into a system? And then how do you put that all together so that your teams can work with those paradigms and start adopting it outside of just you telling them to do that? Because as we know of managers of teams, that's sometimes the hard part, getting through the change management. For this lesson, we're going to go pretty high level. I'm going to be focused on teaching you. In my labs, we do the work ourselves as well, so that students get to practice it as well. But I will share the prompt so you can do it on your own for this scenario. All right, so first I wanted to share with you a format for go-to-market, and this is the Forfeits Canvas. This was introduced by Brian Balfour, and it really focuses on a product and how it relates to the ecosystem around that product. And so the ecosystem for your product is really the market. Who are your buyers? Who's your ICP? How do they discover you? How do they discover you is really the channel. That might be SEO, that might be AEO, that might be partnerships, word of mouth. And then the model is your business model. How do you think about pricing? And does your pricing support the mechanics, the finances of your product? Because if your product is too expensive, yet your willingness to pay for your customers is too low, that might just not work. So an example I wanted to present to you is one from Nextdoor. Apologies. At Nextdoor, I was the general manager for the local business unit. And so my market, my ICP was local small businesses. And what is Nextdoor? Nextdoor is a social app that tries to connect neighbors to what's going on in the neighborhood. A lot of people know it about, people complaining about the deer in the neighborhood. And what I was trying to do is increase utility so that people could find the bakers, the plumbers that could work for their environment, for their neighborhood. So my market was really local small businesses. The product was an opportunity to connect those local businesses to their neighbors. So the hook really was to target to their neighbors, and their time to value is like, how quickly can you get up and running? Because as a local business, you don't necessarily care about advertising on all of that jargon. For our channel, we focused on getting to the local businesses ourselves through boots on the ground. That means salespeople, account managers, canvassing the neighborhood and getting local businesses to sign up. And then our model was, hey, sign up, connect with neighbors, and then over time, as you get more utility, we would have different products like deals, like sponsorships that local businesses could pay for. And then what happened next, and where this model broke down for us, was during COVID, local businesses shut down. So my ICP was unreachable. Not only did more than 50% of them shut down and never necessarily came back, but we had to think about adjusting everything because that shock really swept through our product. So as you think about what's happening right now with AI, with agents, there's differences in channels, differences in how we get to customers, differences in buying patterns, and that's what we'll talk through today. So in my case, I really needed to take the system and think through, okay, it's a completely different environment. How do I adjust the product, the channel, the model to suit the opportunity that we have in front of us? And that opportunity was still helping local businesses, but instead of necessarily getting new customers, the focus on was how can we get them to save money? How can we mobilize neighbors who are the ones who are most interested in the survival of their local businesses to help? So what I did was the team did was change the product to really focus on gift cards, on donations, on buying remotely and getting that what they bought delivered through various channels. And our channels had to change because we couldn't get boots on the ground anymore. No one was allowed outside. And so we really changed to partnerships, getting the DoorDash, the Uber Eats, the companies that were helping lots of local businesses and providing those local businesses another delivery and connection channel next door. And then also PR, those feel good stories about how neighbors were helping local businesses. Our model also changed from advertising and subscriptions to really pausing those subscriptions, enabling local businesses to do a lot more on Nextdoor for free so that we can help them and be a partner for them as they get through this unprecedented time with the objective of once we emerge together, we would be stronger and we would still be considered that trusted partner. So this is an example of thinking through a system, thinking through a funnel, and the adjustments you need to make as those two things change. So when we think about when those playbooks break, the old reality is really we build a funnel, we optimize it, we have predictable buyers, we have our quarterly planning cycles, and we have a level of static playbooks. And sometimes one channel dries up, and so we move to a different channel. The current reality is there is a level of market signals that are shifting. There's an evolution in technology, there's an evolution in how people buy. And so that customer behavior is rapidly changing. And so when we think about how do we adjust to that, we need to move from much more static go-to-market funnels to leveraging AI as a way to glue them together and really pick up on some of those signals so that we can adjust as practitioners. So when we think about that, a traditional funnel, those leads move through linear stages. We optimize each funnel, each stage for conversion, and we have a level of fixed assumptions. With adaptive systems, we go through much more learning loops so that we can get market signals, so we can get those alerts, so that we can work with product and with other opportunities within the company to get that dynamic intelligence into the hands of the operators that are going to share it. So an example I wanted to share with you, and you can find this on my Substack. I'll actually drop that link for you, is how do we get competitive intelligence? Let me do that right now. I am sharing with you three research AIs that you can use and what, in my opinion, are their strengths. So for me, Perplexity is much more real time than ChatGPT and Claude. So I leverage it when I need that real time web search, like when I'm looking for competitors, when I'm looking for signals, like if it's a startup, is it a VC investment? Is it something else to really help me hone in on what's happening and what's happening now so I can get into that delta. With ChatGPT and deep research, the strength there is much more of that detailed deep dive. So once you understand who your competitors are and you're really thinking through what are those themes and changes that I might need to make, this is where you ask the deeper questions. And for me, Claude is something that when you have a lot more of those inputs, maybe the deep research, the competitor insights from Perplexity, you can use it to synthesize the information and produce those structured summaries and feature comparisons so you can make more granular decisions based on the insights you have from your competitors. Sorry about that. So when we think about what is an AI native go-to-market system, what I really think about is that continuous feedback Like, can you connect insights that you're running with insights that you have within the company and connect what you build to what you're hearing in the market to how you monetize and really get go-to-market and R&D to work together on those insights to both build better products, but also market them to your customers or the changing customers that you have in your market. The second one is really getting that data, and we're all really good at this already, but instrumenting the actions that are generating data within your products, within your websites, within your funnels, to trigger a level of personalization or response now that you have that data, now that you have those insights. And then finally, increasing the learning velocity as we adapt to changes in our customers and changes in our market to really figure out what is working and test much more rapidly. So a framework I wanted to introduce to you is the MAPE loop for go-to-market. And I really wish it was MAP, but I think the execution piece is important. So we'll go with the acronym. And what we're going to go into next after we get into this framework is first the prompt set, and then how do we put this together into much more of a system. So when we think about this framework, there are 4 components. The first one, we dove a little bit into this for competitive intelligence, is monitor. Track the customer signals, the competitive intelligence, any sort of market shifts, any sort of channel shifts, and track it systematically so you don't have one person that's constantly doing this. The second piece is analyze. When we analyze, we take a look at these disparate signals, and what LLMs are really great at is picking up on these different patterns that are coming up for you when you're monitoring, so that we can identify the patterns and we can go from individuals saying like, hey, I heard this from a customer, and we'll go into sales intelligence next, to, hey, we're hearing this from 8 customers, and these are all marquee SaaS customers, and this is what they're talking about. This is their pain point, and this is how we should potentially address it. And that's where product and product teams come in once you surface those insights. And then the last one is spotting anomalies, like really thinking through, like, where are the breakdowns in your funnels? What channels no longer work? If you're optimizing for AEO right now, a lot of it is just, wrappers for SEO. So how can you really continue to monitor and figure out how some of these things work? So from the analysis phase, we really move into planning. Can we create those narratives? Can we design the experiments? Can we come up with the hypotheses and then feed them back into our monitoring systems so that we can allocate the appropriate resources for what we're going to test, what we're going to do next, either in product or in our channels or in our messaging and positioning? And from the planning, of course, we go into the execution phase of allocating the resources, deploying the campaigns, enabling our teams, and then measuring those outcomes so we can feed it back into this loop and get a little bit smarter as we get those signals back in. So here's a simple prompt, but something like summarize the top 5 new objections from the last 20 sales calls and map them to feature gaps. What we're going to talk through next is, this is a prompt, this is an individual prompt. Like, how do we chain them together? How do we move them into systems? So let me jump into the first one for us, and I will share this with you after our call today. And just thinking through the prompts in each of these cycles, and how do we think about the individual prompts so that we can first sense those signals early, choose the appropriate data source. That might be Gong, Chorus, Fireflies, it might be Granola, it might be other ways that we gather conversations or user research or customer conversations. And then combine that with any sort of product analytics, your CRM pipeline. And here's a couple of prompts that you can use. Something like summarize the top recurring customer questions, or identify any new themes or pain points. emerging in the past 2 weeks. Compare this week's product mentions versus last week's to detect feature resonance or detect if there's a new competitor that's coming about. The next piece is analyze. So finding the meaning in the noise. So it's not always everything is actionable, but getting from the insights that you're getting to what you actually do about that. Some of the analytics you can use is any sort of customer segment shifts, conversion bottlenecks, or messaging adoption versus misalignment. And this is where some of that chaining comes in. We can add and cluster customer objections into specific themes. So we can work directly with product on some of those solution sets. You can map each theme to affected personas or deal stages. Hopefully you have your ICP and you already know how to map it to the deal stages that you have within your CRM. And lastly, plan. So translate some of those insights, some of those signals that you're getting into strategy. The planning focus is on how do we adjust the positioning or messaging, revise onboarding or enablement materials, launch pricing or packaging experiments, and then align our roadmaps or marketing calendars. So here's a couple of prompts that you can try. Based on these insights from the previous 2 that you've already done, draft me 3 go-to-market hypotheses. Usually with this is a simple prompt. You'd add the context of your ICP. You add the context of what you've already tried. So you can try that different delta to adjust what you're going to be doing. And then for each hypothesis, suggest a small scale test. And also the messaging, the channel, and the audience. So you can continue to add to your experimentation framework. And finally, execute. Now that you have your chain of experiments, you have your insights from the past week or the past month, you can put together some specific prompts for the opportunities that you have. Maybe it's campaign copy, maybe it's personalized outreach for emails or for your sales team. Things like generalized, personalized outreach based on the segment insights, using, of course, the context from your company and how you would usually talk to your customers. The other thing you can do is create various A/B test variation to reflect that new positioning. What I wanted to go into next, and let me share these prompts with you, and I will also share them in a follow-up email, and you can go ahead and follow along. The other one that I wanted to share with you is building the actual system. And so this is the next one. Let me share it with you as well. Systematizing the prompts. And this is when you're ready to go past individual prompts themselves into combining those prompts, combining those chains with Zapier or Claude APIs to really put together that set. And so when I think about that, the first with monitoring, so you can do something like summarize top 20 sales calls, or you can programatize it to focus on a time parameter, like the last months, the last 30 days. What is the delta from the insights that we have previously? You can then analyze, cluster any objections into themes. This is useful for sales enablement. It's useful for product and product strategy. So you can categorize what you're building into a specific system. Then you can plan your next go-to-market opportunity. I'm putting in specific numbers, but you can think about it systematically. Can you generate the next go-to-market hypotheses? And it might be the same exact one, and you might not have any drift, but you can leverage the AI to help you as that brainstorming partner as you go through it. And then, of course, execute. Is it the difference in outreach copy? Is it the difference in blog, the content, the email, the channels that you need to go after? The next piece here that I cover is just defining your MAPE stack. you have different data sources. I've leveraged Gong, I've leveraged HubSpot, I've leveraged LinkedIn. You might have a different opportunity set or a different way that you capture customer data, sales data, so that you can have that opportunity to think through it and figure out what your AI layers are in your various phases of MAPE, the monitor, the analyze, the plan, and the execute. And the most important for me is feedback as you try these different tasks, different prompts. What are you getting back, and how do you need to adjust those 4 phases so that you can feed it back and adjust your loop? And so below here, I go into specific, how do you create those modules? I mostly focus on Gong, HubSpot, and Zapier, but if you have a different set, like your Claude APIs, or different ways that you're connecting the systems together, plug it into the named opportunities that I have here, and it will work just the same. This is more of a prompt or a way for you to start thinking through it. Okay, so those are both linked. I have the link sent to you. And then as you have, thanks, Praveen, I will also share them after we talk here. So the next one really, I think we won't go through all of the material here, is breaking down some of those silos. Like, I've been in product for most of my career. There's a level of like, we built it, hey, go to market, go ship it, go connect us to our customers, hey, sales, sell it. And there's that level of, I don't know, hubris or it's not my problem that I still sense with a lot of product teams. The opportunity here is to start to combine go-to-market and product from a perspective of you're all working off the same data. So product probably has talked to customers through user research. They know who the persona is. They know what they're solving for, but it was in a point in time. Sales, marketing, customer support talks to customers all the time. So there's an opportunity for the build teams and the go-to-market teams to really start working off data about customers, about what's working, what's not working, so that we all collectively make better decisions. So when I think about breaking down those silos, I really think about the information layer, what we've just mapped out in MAPE, being somewhere central and accessible for those teams. So that way, when we build products, those product insights inform the feature roadmap and positioning, but they also inform sales enablement. They also inform go-to-market. When we think about market, that campaign data, like what is resonating, who are our customers, which channels are working, are shaping our channel strategy and are shaping what we build. And then, of course, the last one, monetize. How do we actually make money from this thing? And are we spending too much? Is our cost of acquisition higher than our lifetime value? That needs to be a factor and somewhere centralized when we think about what we're doing. So I'm going to actually share one last slide, and then I'll turn it over to you all for questions, because I think this could be informative as well. Is that a specific opportunity to move from calls, sales calls, customer calls, into either a campaign or sales enablement campaign, or shaping the product strategy. And so the way we do that is really by capturing. We usually have something. We have our Salesforce, we have our Gong, we have something else to capture sales calls, customer interview, support tickets. Leverage AI in this extraction piece to extract that narrative. So you're going to need to spend some time on the prompting, but you can then create something like a Gong agent or something just like a prompt and spreadsheet chat GPT layer if you don't want to go the agentic route quite yet before you get those prompts right, to extract the patterns, the objections, the how your customers talk about your product, so that you can shape both what do you build next and why, and really help the products teams talks to the go-to-market teams to confirm why they're building what they're building. But then the second piece for sales, for marketing, you have then your customer sorry, again, your customer conversations, how they talk about the product. So when you're creating campaigns, you can talk about their pain points in that same way. So the two link outs here I have for you. One is another Substack that really goes into how do you extract customer intelligence, so sales intelligence to product, and it has a specific prompts for you there, so you can go ahead and take a look there. And then the second link that I have here for you is more of a library of the AI native GTM prompt library, so you can use some of those in your analysis and thinking through building your go-to-market plans. GTM prompts. All right, here we go. Okay. Well, I know we're a little over the 30 minutes, so what I wanted to do next is probably skip the rest of these. I think those were the big ones, and let you know one more time that if this resonated, we cover a lot more of go-to-market, the systems underneath them, the frameworks for creating the campaigns that you need to do in develop CPO level skills. So if this resonated with you and you want to go deeper, I'd love to invite you to join me on November 10th so that we can keep talking about that. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing for a second and turn it over to you and let me know if you have any questions of things you're tackling with and where this might be helpful. Thanks, Juan. Awesome. Right. I think everyone's feeling shy, but if you have a question, let me know and drop it into the chat and I'll see it. Otherwise, I think I can go through the rest of the presentation for us and maybe that will be helpful as well. Okay, wait, 2 new questions. Oh, here we go. Would the steps differ with sales-led motion, ecosystem-led motion? Praveen, do you mind speaking this out and just give me the specific example? I think I'm less familiar with what ecosystem-led is. Do you
Yeah.
mean
Hi,
community or something different?
can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi. Yeah. Yeah, a wonderful session, very inspiring. Thanks so much. You already given
Thanks,
so
Praveen.
much of stuff. So I was wondering if the steps would differ if it's a sales-led motion or like it's a different we have so many different ways to penetrate the market. So would that impact? Ecosystem-led motion is something these days it's kind of caught the imagination. I think it's basically kind of growing through all the means possible in the ecosystem, in a kind of a they also call customer-led motion, right, for growth,
Mm.
where
Mhm.
customer experience becomes pivotal, and then we work backwards to technology. So
Mm.
if we kind of pick one of these motions, would the steps be similar or the same, or would it needs a little tweak?
Sounds good. So for sales led, one of the ways you can apply the same thing, and it's in the Substack I shared, is to really understand from the multiple conversations and the multiple salespeople what is resonating with customers, for what are the pain points that they have, and understand which salespeople are resonating, like what part of the pitch is working so that you can work with sales enablement, with other people in the organization to really help the rest of the sales organization pivot their pitch or pivot how they talk about the product to that way. The other things you can pick up on is other insights like what is your ICP, your ideal customer profile, so that the sales team can spend their effort, spend their time more specifically on the ones that are more likely to convert. So if there isn't a product or a product to then can catch the information and make it better for your users, you can still apply that product lens, product hat to figure out who your customer is, what their pain points are, how do they talk about that, and then adjust both the delivery, your channel, your salespeople to deliver in those words to those pain points, address the competition in that way. For community-based products, I think what you're saying, ecosystem, where really the value, the product really matters, the community really matters. What you can do is listen in the same way. So let's say your community is in Slack, there's an opportunity to get that information, get those conversations to really dig into more from a user research perspective. What do people care about? Where is the heat? What do they want more of? What are they complaining about? So that you can use that same LLM analysis on top of the conversations to shape what you do next. And that might be product, that might be sales, depending on what type of customer you have. Does that answer your question, Praveen?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Alina.
Of course. And we've got a late joiner. All right, let me know if you all have any other questions. Otherwise, I think I'll try to breeze through the final slides and share a couple of more things with you. And I might not be able to see the chat right away, so just speak up. All right. So just thinking through that automation and that signal to action loops, what Praveen just picked up on, what we talked through, is that sense. Can you use AI to get from individual conversations or individual conversations in time and move that more into patterns? So detect those leading indicators, the intent signals, engagement drops, competitive moves. That might be in your community, that might be in sales conversations, that might be through customer support. And then either programmatically or through human in the loop, triggers some of those actions. It might be the content update. It might be a sequence adjustment, like, are you trying to sell them too soon? Or it might be various alert routing that, engineering needs to know that something has broken. So having those monitoring beyond just technology, but also through social listening, through the listening of your other people in your team, so that you can better adjust both go to market and those systematic changes. And finally, closing the loop in real time, like as the market drifts, as your customers drift, as there's a shock to the market, you'll be able to get that insight and put it back into your AI system. So here's a simple prompt, but something like identify segments showing high intent but low engagement this week, and propose 3 personalized re-engagement experiments. So you've probably already mapped out what high intent means. Maybe they spend time with you, maybe they've spent money in your product, and for whatever reason, something has dropped or something has happened in the last week or two. And so proposing that personalized re-engagement and those experiments helps you both know something has happened, know something has changed, and then move into how do you change or how do you respond to that. And closing with scaling your learnings across your team. So we talked about this a little bit already, but if you share this intelligence, and it's not just with marketing, not just with sales, not just with product, there's an opportunity to create in Notion, in a database, and somewhere accessible within your company, an opportunity for everybody to work off the same intelligence. So how can you combine your customer insights, your pain points, your use cases, your outcomes? How can you combine that with support knowledge that what are the top tickets? What are the top pain points that your customers are asking your support team around, and that you're probably training an AI bot to answer already? And are they the same as the customer insights or the user research that you have to get at those patterns? If you then combine that with your sales intelligence, any objections, competitors, deal patterns, you can start to understand if the market is changing. Are there new competitors that are offering the same thing for a lower price? Or is there a market correction? So the channels that used to work are no longer working, so that you can combine that with any sort of market data and channel performance, message resonance, and adjust it. So you're constantly creating this insights loop for you and your product. All right. And then before I think I dive into anything else, I wanted to cover Shelley's question. So Elena, piggybacking on Praveen's questions around customer-led growth, how would you differentiate your GTM framework between B2B and B2C? Absolutely, that's a great question. So frequently in B2C, so the companies I worked at are OpenTable, Nextdoor, Liquid Space, Braintrust, where we have at least a B2C component. Usually you have less of the sales intelligence, but you still have your customer insights either from your chatbot on your website or the clicks on your how they interact with your product, and the observability of the customers within your product combined with their social actions, like how do they talk about you, how do they share your product, how do they think about your competitors outside of your product. So you can do that social listening and your competitive intelligence in the same way, and you probably just have less of that sales intelligence in a B2C framework. In a B2B framework, you have fewer signals because you don't have millions of users usually. So you tend to be over indexing on the sales intelligence, the customer support, the support knowledge intelligence, in addition to external like competitor research, market signals, VC investments, or hiring patterns that are happening outside of your product. Let me know if that answers your question, Shelley. Of course. Well, thank you all so much for the great questions and following along with both the systems, the prompts, and how to potentially put this together at your company. If you have further questions, reach out to me. My email, I just dropped that in the chat. And I'd love to see you in a future course in November. Awesome. Happy to collect with an AI enthusiast too, Pyle. I'll find you there. Bye, everybody. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.